And hello and welcome to the Pumpkin Copter Cast, a good old podcast about video games. Today I am again joined by my good friend Ropnolc.
Hello.
So, even though we've already met before, let's, for the benefit of the -7 people who watch the show, say that we haven't, and you can tell us a bit about yourself.
There's not really much to know about me. I'm just someone who draws, plays video games, and works for Mid-Boss, I guess. My humble game is very strong, can you tell? But no, there's nothing really special about me. I just do my own stuff.
Okay then. So we'll just get right on into it. So, question number 1. What game and or games got you into video games and why? A standard boilerplate question.
Considering I've played games for about as long as I can remember, there's quite a few that I think stood out to me as I was growing up. I think the first console in general that I was holding in my tiny little hands was like a Game Boy, and basically everyone I've ever known for some reason had a copy of Super Mario Land 2, and that game was so fucking good. I really loved Mario Land 2. I played it a lot on people's borrowed Game Boys. So I was kind of a mooch. Like, I always played games that I really liked on other people's systems without really owning one of my own. I think I played Mario Brothers as a very youngling as well. Particularly that, and also maybe Duck Hunt. It's hard to remember, but I've played video games pretty much since then, and then I started getting my own systems like a Nintendo 64, a Game Boy Color, and that's where like my I'd say collection started. It was there rather than like with an NES or something, or a Super Nintendo, which I knew someone who had one, and we played Mario World on it and Battletoads. She was like a little Russian girl, and her games were fucking Super Mario World and Battletoads. She was hardcore.
Yep. I was a bit of a video game moocher when I was a youngin'. I remember it wasn't until like last year when Nintendo released the original 3 Pokemon games on the 3DS eShop that I was able to get my own copy of Pokemon Red, play through it, and beat it. Because I always played through my brother's, because he... And I also remember, this is only sort of related, that way back in the day, he swindled me and got me to trade my fairly high-level Tentacruel for like a bottom-of-the-barrel Caterpie.
I've had similar things. I've traded a Missing No for a level 100 Rhydon, so that was fun. I was like, check out this really rare, cool Pokemon. Also, another terrible trade that I've done as a kid was with a smaller child who had Wario Land 3, and I was like, this game is amazing, and all I have is fucking Kirby's Dream Land, and so we did like a trade, but then we never saw each other again, so I just have this copy of Wario Land 3 with me.
I remember 1 or 2 years ago, Wonder Trade for Pokemon X, I was trading just random Pokemons I got, and I somehow ended up getting a level 100 shiny Swampert.
Nice.
Out of nowhere.
Wonder Trade is Well, it is what it is. It's basically like a fucking roulette. While I was playing, people were using it to as a sort of dumping grounds for like either IV breeding mishaps, like for Pokemon that didn't have the right IVs or natures or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or they used it to just dump like the most bottom of the barrel Pokemon you could fucking imagine. Sun
Yeah.
and Moon suffered from the same thing. You'd get a lot of Abras.
So, incredibly smooth segue to the next question. What video game character do you look up to?
That's a really difficult question because I can't really say I look up to anyone in particular because I've played video games for so long that just absorbing each character makes me appreciate them in like some ways, but criticize them quite a bit for in others. And there's not really one that I would consider like an ideal peer
Mm-hmm.
for myself, which is why video games kind of just need better characters in general.
Yeah.
Not that there aren't. I'm just saying we got to make that push for better characters in the future, which is not easy.
Yeah. I don't know, just for me it's Mario. For me it's always because the first game I ever played all the way through was Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. And just in that game, Mario was just, to me anyway, the chillest guy. I mean, he helps a turtle with self-esteem problems. He basically becomes the mom-dad of a baby Yoshi, which I always found hilarious.
He becomes the Mama Luigi. Wait, wrong video game or cartoon or both.
And he helps, in my opinion, is the objectively best character, Vivian.
Mm-hmm.
The purple girl with no eyes, no hat, and no feet, yet she can still trip and fall over, which is hilarious. And just, yeah. Also, the fact that according to Super Mario Odyssey, Mario is in canon a crossdresser, which is just all kinds of cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it says like if you manage to acquire like that wedding dress, it says that that's not actually Peach's. It's a model of Peach's that Mario had custom fit to his measurements, and I'm just like, that's funny.
I mean, he would have to. After all, he is very short. He's like half the size of Peach.
Yeah.
He'd be tripping all over the dress otherwise.
She is fairly tall. And the other character I look up to is Toadette, because in the latest Mario and Luigi RPG, she builds what are essentially Megazords out of paper mache, and they work.
Yes, I played that. God, that's such a Mario and Luigi Paper Jam is the kind of game that I want to like, but it felt like way too boring for it. Like the writing was really good, and there was a lot to it that was also excellent, but it felt so dry. It felt so dry.
And
I played that on a car trip too, which which kind of just highlighted boredom a bit more. Like I needed something to keep me alive, even if it was Paper Jam.
the boss battles were always the highlights to me in the Mario and Luigi games, because they always get bonkers.
Oh yeah.
So, again, super smooth segue into the next question. The scariest thing you have ever experienced in a game that doesn't necessarily have to specifically be from a horror game, but it can be.
It's hard to say because, like, there have been very little instances in a game where I've been, properly terrified. Like, maybe, actually, I just remembered one in particular, and it's probably the stupidest thing too, because it's not even like scary, but it had me like in bed having like these really like dark thoughts. Take that as you will. So, like, originally I didn't even write this, so I'm just going a little off kilter here. But back when I was playing Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, which belonged to a friend, back to Moochville for me. So when I was playing Link's Awakening, I got to the I got to the main quest line where you're supposed to enter the 7th dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, what you're supposed to do is get the rooster to allow you to fly over some hills or whatever. Here's the thing. This is where like I actually got scared, but like not like scared in the moment, but like sort of traumatized. I think traumatized maybe overplaying it too, but whatever. Essentially, what happened was I ended up finding the rooster. Like I pushed the statue, and like here's the first anomalous part that sort of made me like sort of scared of it at first was when you first revealed that cave. It plays like an altered version of the jingle that's like slower and has a bit more echo to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt really ominous. And then when I got in, I just find this like skeleton, and I'm just like I found something that was dead in here. And my child mind had to process that for a while. Like I just unearthed the fucking tomb, and that fucked me up for a little bit. But like, setting that one aside, the only things that have caused me like legitimate fear would be like really pressured moments where you're like playing a game and it gets to this like all or nothing kind of phase where you're like really deep in, but you don't want to fucking give up, but it's like really goddamn difficult, and if you fuck up, you're like done. That sort of thing. But that's like a general thing. It's like that happens to everybody. Chicken skeleton.
For me, it goes again back to Paper Mario 1000 Year Door, because that's like one of the first games I've ever played almost entirely on my own, and it goes all the way back to the very end of the game when you're facing the final boss, and you go down a whole bunch of stairs, a whole bunch of narrow corridor-y type of stairs, and then when you get in, you're in a room with a bizarrely large amount of candles, and the main bad guy is right in front of a coffin, and then he waves his wand to bring the thing in the coffin out of the coffin, and then all the candles stop glowing orange flame and they start glowing dark purple, and then the thing which was revealed to be the Shadow Queen, the thing that is the reason why everything in the game is the way it is, comes out, and you're like, this is essentially a ghost. This is not like the Booze, like a straight up murder everything everywhere type of ghost, and she causes like earthquakes all over the world and spreads the world in the veil of darkness, and I'm like, I'm 13, I'm not quite an adult yet. So that was mine.
Yeah, like I feel that. Like the most like scary things a game can invoke is basically a sense of existentialism.
Yeah.
having like an early life crisis.
So moving on to this, on the flip side to the positive. Let's see what is the puts a smile on your face-inest thing you have experienced from a game?
Thinking about it, this is another really tough one because I played like so many, but I guess most typically for me, I would feel that sort of satisfaction from games that invoke like heavy nostalgia, and not like me being like, oh yeah, I love Mario 64, so nostalgic. No, not like that. Like as a kid, I did play a lot on my Nintendo 64, and every now and again in my teen years, I would come back to it and like revisit some games, and that made me like really happy because I'd be re-experiencing those games in like a very genuine fashion, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
But from a specific game, like if I had to name one game that brought it up really a really strong like emotion like that, I think it would be Pokemon Heart Gold, because as a kid I spent a lot of time playing Pokemon Gold.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of time. So that game stuck to me quite a bit, and it's a game that allowed me to connect more because I did end up getting Pokemon Blue, but I was really, really late to the party on that one. But with Pokemon Gold, I was like ahead of the curve, and I was experiencing it like like everyone else was at the time, just having a little bit of a good time and discovering new Pokemon and talking about it. It was really cool. And also like Pokemon Heart Gold kind of reconnected me with Pokemon because I had gone on a short hiatus with Pokemon after Generation 3 because I was burnt out and I didn't really feel like Pokemon was fulfilling in any way. And I'm like, I'm a big boy. I'll play big boy games like gun shooty. Which by the way, was very much just me being edgy, because I actually don't care that much for FPSs in general. But hey, Heart Gold was a game that sort of did everything as a remake just right. Like it introduced new things, but it kept all of the old just the way as someone would imagine a remake would look like. Like when you see a remake, you think it's going to be like just like the original. It'll bring you back that sort of experience, and that's what Hard Gold did to me. Didn't do that to like everyone else because it did have some differences and all that, and it also kept some things that weren't good about Gold and Silver. Most prominently, the grinding that you had to do to beat the Elite Four, because Pokemon were extremely low level. Like, the highest level Pokemon you could probably encounter before having to fight the Elite Four would be level 30. And you'd need your team to be at least level 45 to 50. Which made grinding really painful for that part of the game.
Mm-hmm. I know that feeling.
But yeah, Heart Gold just looked great, sounded great, kind of had me almost in tears. It was a very nice revisit into Pokemon.
If I'm thinking along the same lines you are, then my moment would be when I bought the 3DS remastering of Ocarina of Time. That game was my friend who was the one who had the N64. There were pretty much two games we played. The first was the first Paper Mario, and the second was Ocarina of Time. And I just remember playing Ocarina of Time so much, and before I got to... I had Ocarina of Time on the Wii, but I don't know, I just wanted it... have it on the 3DS so I could have it on the go, and because it looks real pretty. And I remember like getting to Ganon, and that was the first time I had gotten to the very end of the game in probably more than a decade, and I'm like, now I know why. I remember why this game is considered one of the greatest games ever made ever. So
I oh no, go on. Sorry.
no, that's all.
I was gonna say that as a kid, I never actually played Ocarina of Time. I got Majora's Mask instead. So I hold more feelings towards that than Ocarina, even though I played it on the GameCube because it came with Wind Waker in Europe anyway.
Huh.
It also came with Master Quest, which I played and then got lost and gave up. But I did beat Ocarina of Time at least once. I do have it on my 3DS, which I still intend to play all the way through again. I did enjoy it. I felt like it was a far more linear adventure, but that didn't it didn't undermine it so much. Like Majora's Mask also was pretty linear. Like it looks like you get a choice, but really it's more like you got to go to the swamp. There's no other way. You got to go to the swamp. Go to the swamp. Do
Yeah.
everything in the swamp, and then go to the other places. And I got lost in Majora's Mask for the longest time, and then I came back to it, beat it, and I was really satisfied. And then it came out on the 3DS, and I was like, yes! Because I was praying every day that this would come out on the 3DS. And it was very good. And it did a lot of improvements over the original, especially with saving. That was, in particular, the worst part about Majora's Mask.
Yeah, I've heard some not so great things about the save system in the original version.
You can only save once per cycle. If you save prematurely, guess what? Your cycle's over. Start from the very first day again. Reset all the events. Lose all your rupees, bombs, and whatnot. Well, not your rupees. You can actually put those in the bank, and the guy who manages the bank will be somehow none the wiser.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I also remember the first time I beat Majora's Mask, gotten right to the final boss after I was done freaking out over the fact that Majora's Mask looks like it belonged in the Shadow Temple in Ocarina of Time because it was just seemed to be made out of various dead things. I
Nightmares.
yeah, I gotten I gotten down. I was literally on half of my very last heart, and I realized that the barrier that Link gets when he wears the Zora mask blocks, I think, all of Majora's attacks. So I was like taking pot shots at it the whole time, nervous because I only had half a heart and I didn't have any potions left. So the entire time I was like a wreck, and when I finally beat it, I felt like I just avoided a heart attack.
I had a similar moment, except I was not so much about potions as I was about fairies. I used fairies more than potions, which just meant I didn't have to worry about using something.
Mm.
But I did beat it with like a quarter heart left, and it was nerve-wracking. And then when I got everything and got the Fierce Deity mask, I was like, wow, this is hilarious. It was the only bit of satisfaction I drew from the Fierce Deity mask was, wow, this made the final boss a complete joke.
Yeah. So, question number 05. What types of games did you play back in the day, and how does it differ from the games you play now?
Well, I was always into platformers because, I was introduced with like Mario and a few others. and Sonic as well. Sonic was also part of my childhood quite a bit. I, at one point, started getting very much into Mega Man X through emulators, because a lot of people around my area also used emulators. There was also JRPGs, like Final Fantasy VI and Final Fantasy IV. I really, really liked those as well. And nowadays, like, that was basically the gist of what I felt when I was a kid. I just really liked platformers or any games that were engaging and felt cool and had some sort of neat visual style. And then I had a phase where I wanted to just try out all the stuff that I never really liked, like RTS games and FPS games, and all that sort of stuff that I just never saw any interest in. Also fighting games a bit, because I felt like I had a little bit of a falling out.
Mm-hmm.
And I dived even deeper into JRPGs than ever before. Nowadays, I'm kind of the same as when I was a kid. I just play platformers the most. I had gotten a bit of a liking towards text adventures as well. That was something I didn't quite enjoy as a kid because I didn't like reading. I enjoy it a bit more now. I enjoy FPS games a bit more as well. I still don't like RTSs. and JRPGs, I feel like I've had a tiny bit of a falling out, primarily because I feel like JRPGs are incredibly slow-paced. Like, I feel as though a lot of JRPGs are sort of just artificially pushing their length to 60 hours in ways that are really droning and annoying. And I don't know. If an RPG has to feel like a really slow and tedious progression between cutscenes and having to grind, like even the ones that you don't have to grind sometimes can feel slow. Like, I'm the kind of person who will fight every battle. Like, I won't just run to spare my time. But, like, if I start getting bored, I will, like, not give a shit and just try to breeze through. And I feel like JRPGs could maybe do with a little bit of shortening. Because, like, I don't have that much time, and I appreciate short experiences more than long ones. Like, if an experience is long, cool, but it's only cool if it keeps me engaged for that long, not if it's forcefully like a 60-hour experience that doesn't really reward me that much. Like, okay, like playing Dark Souls, for instance, like, that's a game that could take you upwards to 40 hours to beat.
Mm-hmm.
That is a game that I've invested at least 200 hours playing because I enjoyed it, and that's the thing. Well, I mean, Dark Souls also is kind of cheating because it's not really much of a JRPG as it is like a Western RPG that relies a bit more on skill than sort of tactics and having the right level. Although having good gear does help a lot in Dark Souls. Don't skimp out on upgrading your gear. That's the reason the game is so hard at the start. It's because you have not yet been able to upgrade your gear. Trust me on this. As soon as you meet Andre in Dark Souls 1, all you have to do is upgrade your gear. Even if you have to grind for like an hour, that's fine. You won't have to grind much more ever again after that.
For me, I didn't play video games a whole lot until I got my first real job and was able to buy my own consoles and everything. But back in the day, it was mostly Mario games because I got like a GameCube for my birthday, and now I just play games that are a little bit of everything. Something I've noticed a few weeks ago that I have quite a few like point and click adventure games. A a month or so back, I managed to finally beat Ron Gilbert's Thimbleweed Park, and that's super adventure gamey. And
Yes, point and click style adventures, right?
I never thought that would be a genre I'd be very interested in, but now like one of my favorite series is the Phoenix Wright games. So
I've been playing
yeah,
Phoenix Wright.
it's
I've gotten the trilogy on the 3DS.
it's quite a time.
It is excellent.
So even though you answered this question the last time, the world of video games are constantly changing. So I ask you again: is video games?
Well, seeing as I've answered it once, I'll answer it again. Yes.
Okay, there you go. So next question: what is a game that you love to bits that the general public boos?
Off the top of my head, the first game that comes to mind is Sonic 3D Blast, because that's a game that I played a lot on my cousin's Mega Drive, or Genesis if you're from the United States. And it's a game that I've really come to enjoy, but a lot of Sonic fans have come to resent. And I can understand why. For one, the controls are less than desirable. It's an isometric game, meaning that your sense of perspective is maybe a tiny bit fucked. So it's hard to sometimes make jumps of any precision. And overall, the game is also just incredibly difficult because of the flickies and the fact that if you like get hit, you lose all of them and they get scattered all over the place. Like you just fucking dropped your wallet and all the coins came flying out, and then you have to awkwardly like run after all of them to pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of experience that Sonic 3D Blast is. It's don't drop your fucking wallet. And I played it all the way through to the end. I played it on the Genesis all the way up through to the end, but I also did the whole like a cartridge tilt trick where it was like, you've accessed the fucking debug screen. Now you can access whatever level you want. And I'm like, cool, I'll just beat the game this way. And I really enjoyed the music. I enjoyed the visuals. I was already a fan of Sonic because I had played the original Sonic the Hedgehog before, and unbelievably, I never even touched a physical version of Sonic 2, which is like everyone's favorite Sonic game. And I'm like, I never even played this game that much, so I don't have that much nostalgia for it compared to 3D Blast. And so I like 3D Blast a lot more than Sonic 2, which a lot of people might want to attack me for, which is fine. I understand. I understand that you might think me as a wrong person, and I empathize with that. Later down the pipeline, I actually did beat the game legitimately by getting the PC version of Sonic 3D Blast, and this was basically just a repackaged Saturn port,
Mm-hmm.
but on PC. So it had all the enhancements of the Saturn version, and what was really fascinating to me about it was that all the visuals were like amazing, and they had done a lot of little tweaks. Like the first thing that blew my mind straight up from the beginning was just bridges would sort of have their own little physics, and they would creak. And I'm like, oh my god, this is even better than the original. Like, was this even in the original? It wasn't, just so you know. But that was like, those were my questions. And I ended up beating the game and getting all the Chaos Emeralds. And then I've done several subsequent runs after that. I've even done a long play of the Genesis version that I put on YouTube. So I had grown a lot of appreciation for a game that a lot of people rightfully dislike, but also are maybe a little too hard on.
Yeah. For for me, it was always I think, early 2000-ish remake of the Splatterhouse games, and I still have it, and it's not exactly super clean. Some of the platformy bits you have to do are very loose. The load times are long, and it can be a little bit glitchy, but it's just one of the unabashedly goriest and super violent beat 'em ups, and it's just sometimes all you want is to smash several manner of demon faces against the wall. So that's mine.
I've never actually played Splatterhouse, so I don't have much of an opinion on it. Unfortunately.
You know, it's a bit rough, but I'd recommend it.
Cool.
So on to the next question. How was / what was the best parts of the early November gaming convention known as Gamer X?
Yes, Gamer X East. Happening in New York. My first time traveling to the United States, as a matter of fact. So it was quite an experience. The con was quite small, all things considered. It was a very nice space. Everyone, it didn't feel very packed like I had seen cons before, which was really, really good. I really liked it. Also, because this was in the Microsoft building, there were coffee machines, on the 2 floors that the con was happening. So we could all just have free coffee whenever we wanted.
Free things.
It was really nice coffee.
So, what did you do whilst you were there?
I helped set up and manage the 2064 table at the indie booths, where everyone was showcasing their indie games, and I was showcasing 2064 while everyone else was also doing their own thing. I swapped places with my colleague and also person you've had here on the show before, Danielle.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was off my post, I would go and look around, and I regrettably didn't play any of the indie games that I really wanted, but I did buy one specifically, which was a card game, and this is because I'm extremely superficial, and I just really enjoy good art styles in games. It's a game called Tiny Swords, and it has the cutest art style. It's really, really pretty, and since the indie booths was where I spent most of my time, that's the gist of that part. But right next to it, there was another room where we had what was it? Where there were vendors. There was the vendors alley or the artist alley, and a lot of people had their table set up. Everyone there was super nice. Their artwork was amazing. I got a shoulder pad that was one of my favorite things. Quick
interruption. Just apologies. There's lawn mowing in the background.
That's okay.
So sorry. Keep going.
Yeah. There was the whole like I said, there was a shoulder pad that I got, which was just this axolotl, this white axolotl with colored stars. They had some old merch, old Burger King Mario toys and Pokemon card packs. I actually had to get some of the Mario toys because, for one, they're incredibly ugly, but for another, they're incredibly beautiful. And I also got some stickers and some prints. Again, artists there, really nice. I got a couple of misprint Undertale stickers. Particularly, the best one I got was this miscolored pink Sans sticker, where it wasn't even cut up, right? It's still like in a big white block. But get this, the reason I got it was because I was talking to the to that artist, and they were like, of course they were really fun to talk to, and they explained to me that like some of the stickers were sort of more monotone in color than the others, and that was because they were misprints. And then just before I leave, just after I bought the stickers that I wanted, I look to the right and I just see this like pink Sans sticker, and I just ask them, "Is this another misprint?" And they say yes, and then they just like immediately give me the sticker. There were also panels on GamerX that I, for the most part, missed, but I also wanted to at least attend one just to be there for the rest of the team, because I felt like I had been a little bit absent from everyone's radar. But other than that, yeah, my experience with GamerX was a rather nice one.
So, I unfortunately didn't get to go this year, even though I really wanted to, just because of lack of access to transport to take me from the vaguely Boston area to the New York area. But hopefully by the time it rolls around again next year, that'll have changed.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I do intend to fly to the United States again, especially now that I have experience. At first, I was kind of an idiot baby, and I didn't know what I was doing or where I was going. So, kind of a scary thing for me, especially because I couldn't really contact anyone because my cell phone plan did not allow that unless it was through SMS. But I didn't get access to maps, which made traveling a little annoying, because then I'd have to know specifically how the train system works, which I didn't. So getting to the hotel was an adventure in and of itself. The 9-hour flight, was actually just fine. The 9-hour flight was surprisingly not what fucked me up. It was the trip from JFK to Pennsylvania Station that bamboozled me.
Huh. So, yep. It was that. So, moving on to the next question. Based on your knowledge of 2064 and all the colorful people who inhabit it, both literally and metaphorically colorful, what would Turing's response be to the question, is video games?
I don't think I'm very qualified to answer, because I didn't write Turing or didn't even create Turing in any capacity. But if it were up to me, I think Turing's response would probably be something along the lines of, I don't quite understand the question. However, I love video games.
Good to know. So, and with that, we move on to our final question of this little charade. That is, what piece of video game technology, and by technology I mean technology in a video game, would you like to have?
Technology in a video game, or just like anything that does this include consoles or anything else like that? Or do you mean just like tech that is found in video games that was really cool?
Yeah, the second thing you said.
Okay, that's what I didn't write or account for, so that's awkward.
Yeah, I'm bad at words.
I don't know. It always feels like technology goes awry in video games, and it's
Yeah.
always like really really weird and experimental and and dangerous to say the least. And a lot of machinery that you find in games isn't even like life hacks or whatever the fuck. It's usually like weapons of mass destruction or whatever, and I'm like, nah, no, thank you. I would rather not kill people. And it's a bit difficult to sort of feel like I would want something from a video game, especially because a lot of the time, this is another thing. A lot of the time, a lot of the things you find in a video game, a lot of technology you find in video games, feels very much limited to the context of the video game itself. Like it's very situational and something you would only need within the game's universe.
Yeah.
So I can't really say that I have something that I wish to have from a video game. Although, if I may say, one thing that I would definitely love to have at some point would be like as far as like just actual video game tech, would be the Nintendo 64 disk drive, because
Really?
that's okay. So I really liked the Nintendo 64 disk drive because it was so ambitious and it failed so spectacularly. it just like, I don't know what happened for it to fail this hard, but it was so amazing for what it was. Like, I feel like if it had continued the way it was, it would have rivaled the Dreamcast in features, because it used online, right? It had upgraded graphics, and it used I say upgraded graphics, but rather it allowed the Nintendo 64 to process upgraded graphics and other such things. And it also, it had its own like little disc format that were like kind of large too, which leads to the next thing that I would like in conjunction with this, which would be its development discs, specifically these blue discs, these fabled blue discs that have roamed the internet and the world, that contain information for games that are either unfinished or unfinished and unreleased, because the disc drive didn't really see many releases, and also Mario Artist. But particularly what piques my interest about the blue discs, which I'm not sure if this saga has really been put to a close in any way, shape, or form, but people believe that there is at least a blue disc out there that contains the data for the unfinished beta of Mother 3 on the Nintendo 64 disc drive. And that is something I would like to hold at least once before handing it out to someone who knows what they're doing and could dump its contents and make it playable. And yeah.
I don't know. For video game technology, I'm pretty happy with my future device that is the Switch. Just because it really is easy to go from docked to portable, and it's just still blows my mind that I can play a full 3D, full-scale Mario game on the go. So yeah, and technology in video games would probably be that spaceship that looks like Mario's face in the second Mario Galaxy game.
Where would you put that? Would you live on it?
Yeah, find a big enough field, and I could make something of it.
All right.
And with that, this particular train wreck of an episode has come to a close. So, before we sign off, is there anything you want to plug, Mr. Ropnolc?
I mean, I have a Twitter, so y'all can follow me on that. I also have a YouTube, but I upload things very sparingly. My username is also the same on DeviantArt. So if you want to follow just my art and not my bullshit, you can follow it there. But otherwise, I don't have much else to plug.
And with that, we're all done. If you like this episode, be sure to like, rate, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me out, blah, blah, blah. If you want to follow all of my nonsense, my Twitter is also at tgorman83. And hopefully I'll have at least a few more episodes coming in the December, so be sure to look out for that. So, yep, this has been the Pumpkin Copter Cast, a good old podcast about video games, with me, tgorman83, and my friend Ropnolc.
Hey.
And we shall see you all later. Bye.
Later.